Redefining education. The United States education system destroys individuality with the lack of creativity and care that surrounds what is defined as adequate education. Now, I understand that to say the education system is destroying individuality is a strong accusation, but let me ask you this. In your academic career, have you ever truly been able to express yourself? Or have you been forced to change any hint of stylistic expression and conform to a standardized style instead? More importantly, when we think about how we are taught, we sit quietly in a room with 30 or more other people as someone talks at us for an hour or more at a time, instead of with us or with each other. We are also told to go home and read a textbook and are expected to absorb everything, then go do mundane homework that is more busy work than educational. Education, or rather knowledge, is the foundation of all things. Knowing is power, and it cultivates a sense of identity and establishes a healthy relationship between people and the world around them. And yet, humanity is taken out of education. There's no collaboration, and students become more akin to machines rather than people with thoughts and feelings that they want to express. But what if it doesn't have to be this way? Harvard psychologist Howard Gardner devised a theory that expresses the idea of multiple intelligences, meaning people ultimately learn in different ways. There are 8 primary types of intelligence: visual spatial, musical rhythmic, verbal linguistic, logical mathematical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. Thus, some examples of how students learn with these different kinds of intelligences are seeing things spatially, through songs, speaking aloud, organizing ideas linearly, moving around or physically writing information down, talking to another person, spending time alone with their thoughts, and finally placing themselves within a nature-oriented environment. As simple as this idea is, its existence brings the U.S. education system to its knees, because it implies that the way we gauge someone's intelligence is not only inaccurate and unfair, but more importantly, it is simply inhumane. The idea of multiple intelligences also brings to question if learning disabilities, such as dyslexia, can even justify the separation of students. Dyslexia is a reading disability that usually can be remedied by interpersonal instruction and more newly discovered special fonts. The issue is with understanding information through reading and also difficulty writing information, not necessarily comprehension altogether. Therefore, the capacity to learn is the same as others, but they are forced into special education courses or held back because of their condition, because conventional learning methods are their kryptonite. For instance, my husband went his entire life undiagnosed and placed in special education and remedial classes. He has grown up thinking that he simply cannot learn, but in the short time I have tried to help him improve his reading skills with one-on-one instruction and giving him documents with dyslexic-friendly fonts, he has improved drastically. He is living proof that people with learning disabilities have the capacity to learn and are capable of being knowledgeable. They just never had the resources or care they deserve to reach their potential. Equally so, the amount of people who are failing because they cannot conform to a system that was not made for them are trying to navigate life thinking they cannot learn. For both groups, not being able to learn in conventional ways affects their self-esteem, self-worth, and causes students to internalize failure as a predictor of their capacity to learn and restricts their ability to dream and be more than what they give themselves credit for. This can lead to people not wanting to participate in public discourse or even care about education because they feel embarrassed or assign little value to themselves. An excellent representation of this idea is a quote from Albert Einstein. "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." One of the primary remedies for some of these issues may lie in the idea of incorporating creativity into the educational process. Different types of intelligences are expressed through creative activities such as music and making different forms of media like drawing or making videos. Therefore, if we allow creativity into the classroom, we can reach these students as well as make education for the rest of the students more memorable and enjoyable. However, the importance of creativity cannot be stressed enough by anyone but the Informational Studies Committee of the NAEA in their article, What It Means to Be Creative. In education today, we must see that being creative is not merely doing for the sake of doing, but that it is a powerful force within the human race. Without development under guidance and care, it will be wasted at a time when our culture needs all of the intellectual and spiritual values available. New styles in the arts and philosophies are indications of creative capacities, and we must recognize this, for a civilization which gives no opportunity for creative growth declines both physically and spiritually. Education must provide a place for this if we are to accept the challenge to stimulate ideas of values. This powerful force can be used to not only cultivate self expression, but help reach students that struggle with learning in traditional ways. If we gravitate back towards the individual and encourage individuality and the worth that comes with it, we can make great strides in improving education for all students. We need to remind students that everything they write and create is invaluable because only they could have made it. Education doesn't have to make students be creative, but provide an environment where they have the choice to explore alternative learning methods and express themselves freely. I realize that it may be too idealistic to think that there would be a mass revision of the public education system that would cater to these groups because they are a minority. But we can do things to help reverse the destruction it has caused. For instance, this project is an example of breaking away from traditional writing and showing people that writing is so much more than just an MLA formatted essay that follows strict rules that dictate the language one uses and how they can structure their arguments. If a student cannot write a good MLA formatted essay, it has no bearing on their value or merit as a writer. They are not a bad writer because they can't conform to a system that wasn't designed for them. There are a couple things we can do to combat the damage done to students and hopefully change the course of how we define education for future generations. We can be more conscious of different learning styles. For instance, as an English writing tutor working at Riverside City College, we began assessing students prior to their appointments to determine which multiple intelligences that they were strongest in, and then modified our teaching methods based on those results. We can also be more conscious of students with dyslexia and provide additional resources in the classroom to help students thrive among other students. We can also be mindful in our assessment of students that struggle with learning and refer them to resources before throwing them into special education classes. And lastly, we can find more creative ways to reach students through different mediums of instruction and assignments. This isn't a call to action for a mass revision of the education system. Rather, it is a call to mindfulness. Everything we do helps because, as Martin Luther King Jr. expresses, if I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way.